Okay, we are live. Welcome all. Welcome in to the Spin Cycle. Andrew Southwick, R.C. Williams, back with you once again to remove the narrative and the spin from the news stories that you need to know. And we've got a lot of them today. We're probably not going to get through all of them, and so we'll save a few for tomorrow. But big time stuff. And you would think that, particularly RC, it's amazing what gets in the news and what doesn't. And again, we've talked about distraction and things like that, but there's so many shiny objects. Dr. Fauci was a soup du jour last week, and then all of a sudden we're backing off that and we're respecting Joe Biden's auto pen on that one and everything else. But however, if you dare to go against your leader, well, we're going to run you out of town. So the accountability is certainly selective and few and far between at that. But nonetheless, we are not afraid because we are not owned, bought, or paid for by any political party or advertiser or special interest. Our interest is the truth, and our interest is getting the truth to you. Yes, we do have a bias. We are conservative. We do believe in the Lord, and so that's the way that is. That stuff's going to come out, but we're looking for the truth, and you can do with it what you will. And so we want to get right to it. First off, my friend, let's start
Yeah.
with this. I'll ask the question: did the tariffs work? Now, NRC, you'll recall. In fact, it was on Independence Day, was it not, that President Trump, it was unleashed these tariffs onto the world, and he did so unilaterally, did so through an emergency authorization, which is becoming a common way for our government to do things, just declare an emergency and do whatever you want. And the idea was, and we've even had guests on Culture Crossroads, the Sunday show, and talking about, well, the idea behind tariffs is reshore American work, American production. That is a good idea. But one of the questions I had was, well, if a tariff effectively is a tax, businesses can only absorb it for so long, especially small businesses and mid-sized businesses. But if you're not doing anything with our anti-business hurdles and regulations here at home, the businesses are still not going to reshore, because that might be a deterrent to outsourcing materials or outsourcing production. But if it's too expensive and too prohibitive to have production here in America, nothing's going to change. And so, but now as that went on, SCOTUS, Supreme Court, then would find many of these tariffs unconstitutional. Now, they didn't say that President Trump couldn't reinstitute tariffs in some way. They just said not the same way that he did. So we find other ways. And of course, there's other tariffs and all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, we do have tariffs happening. Let me share this tab. And let's see here. This is from Thomas Massey's X. Hopefully I've got the right one here. Yeah, that is the wrong layout though, isn't it? Oh my goodness. Where's my two-shot? There we go. All right. So you can see here, this is what Thomas Massey says. He says, what a nightmare by implementing the tariffs illegally and now having to unwind them. The Trump administration created over $100 billion of profit for corporations selling foreign products at the expense of American consumers. Your refund is zero. Apple's profit, $2.2 billion. I will go through a couple of these because there is some conflation in here. There is some narrative even from Mr. Massey here, but we'll see what's real and what isn't. This rundown says that Apple received a $2.2 billion tariff refund. So again, to make sure that we're all caught up, and RC, correct me if I'm wrong here, President Trump imposed tariffs. Therefore, when companies are outsourcing, they have to pay an additional tariff in order for that product to come ashore. And when the Supreme Court found this set of tariffs unconstitutional and illegal, now the government had to refund that money, which, by the way, we talked about on Culture Crossroads even before the Supreme Court took up the case. And when the tariffs were first coming out, we said, listen, if you're going to do it through an emergency order, and that emergency order is either revoked or found unconstitutional, then we're going to have to refund the money. And are you and I going to get any of that money back? We asked that question specifically. And of
Yes,
course,
we
the
did.
answer is no. Of course, the answer is no, even though many of us did pay higher prices in some part due to the tariffs. Okay, so Apple got a $2.2 billion tariff refund check. Amazon received theirs for $600 million. Then you have Walmart $10 billion, Target $2 billion, Costco $2 billion, Nike $1 billion, Home Depot $2 billion. And of course, where is your $2,000 check? I'll leave this up on the screen for just a minute. Sent the Supreme Court on February 20th of this year ruled that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which was the loophole that President Trump used to unilaterally impose the tariffs, that did not authorize the president to impose these tariffs. So the Court of International Trade subsequently ordered Customs and Border Protection to return roughly $166 billion in unlawfully collected duties plus interest to the importers of record that paid them. Apple's reported $2.2 billion benefit and Amazon's approximate $600 million refund are supported by corporate reporting. So Apple reported an estimated, the actual figure is $2.19 billion, which added approximately 11 cents per share to their quarterly earnings. Amazon collected $600 million. Now, to say that the others walked away, Walmart walked away with $10 billion, Target got $2 billion. These numbers come from a Citi analysis estimating what these companies could be owed. So the final tabulations have not been officially released yet. But the unofficial amounts that these companies, Walmart, Target, Nike, Macy's, for example, is another one, $320 million to Macy's, Costco, Home Depot. Again, this is what they're approximately owed, what they could potentially be owed. It could be a little bit more. It could be a little bit less. So we're getting an estimate there, and that doesn't mean that those checks have been cut yet, because again, that final number is still imprecise. The claim that the administration created more than $100 billion in corporate profit, that is possible, but it's not precise. There's three possible outcomes here, RC. One, a company absorbed the tariff and then later recovered it, so that refund would restore its prior position, right? So the second would be that the company passed the tariff entirely to customers, then returned the refund through rebates or lower prices. So then their windfall would be limited. So if just whatever, you buy a surround sound system from Walmart, and the surround sound normally would cost whatever, $100, $200. I realize these are low numbers, but whatever, $100. But because of the tariff, they charge $120. Well, then Walmart would then go back and maybe offer a rebate of $20 on something, or offer lower prices on something else to offset the cost of that to the consumer, either in that particular area, electronics or gaming, or in some other area. So then when they get their refunds there, they might have a little profit, but not much, because they tried to offset it that way. That's a possible arrangement. The third one is the one of concern, that the company passed the tariff on to the customers, recovered then the tariff money from government with interest, and retained all the money. That would be profit, because then we are paying the full weight of the tariff. Then they are getting basically $2.2 billion, putting them ahead, or $1 billion, or whatever the amount is, putting them ahead. That's the main concern here. That not that we set up a government. What am I looking for? A government implemented wealth transfer scam. I wouldn't use the word scam, but a government implemented wealth transfer mechanism very well could have been put in place. RC.
It's a pretty slick move if that's the case. What I look at here, I go back to what we said on Culture Crossroads. Guys, and this is going to come up later in the show today as well. When you live by the sword, you die by the sword. The thing that we've continued to say, and now here we are, is that you need to codify everything you want to do into law in the window that was given. We said at best you've got 18 months to do that, because if you don't, then it can just be rolled back. And in this case, it was the Supreme Court that did it. Now, ultimately, how much of this will shake out, we don't know. I think your scenarios of how companies could use the money that they would get back is acceptable. It could be any combination of those, depending on how much heat those companies want to take when people want to eat the rich. I do think, though, Andrew, this is a symptom of a larger problem. When you party like it's 1989, we have talked openly on Culture Crossroads, and I think on the Spin Cycle too, about how a lot of the economic policy that President Trump is working and receiving is coming from guys like Peter Navarro. No disrespect to Peter Navarro, but you can't keep partying like it's 1989. The heavy hammer of the United States isn't what it used to be because our dollar is so devalued. And now with the situation with Iran, countries are looking at us and they're saying basically, hey, the Don is slipping. I would never been able to get to him like that 10 years ago, as they would say in The Godfather, right? So ultimately, what comes of this? Well, if you take it naked and bare, it does look like it could potentially be some type of weird wealth transfer, which just isn't a good look. But then again, Andrew, I was thinking about that last night and this morning, is that what now is acceptable behavior has now come into question, right? And the gray area has gone from this to this. And so in some way, could this be deemed acceptable? Because a lot of things have now been deemed, oh, that's acceptable. Now, look, it may not be ethical, it may not be moral, but it is legal. And ultimately, that's what matters the most. I think it's disappointing to see that, hey, this is supposed to be the solution to the problem. And then you get smacked back by the Supreme Court. Now, President Trump has a method to implement them again. They didn't tell him he couldn't. They just said, you can't do it this way. But I think he and the administration would do themselves well to actually get things codified into law so that they can't be changed.
Well, but I mean, we're on midterm season and we are mired once again in the Middle East, and we're also still financing Ukraine v. Russia.
Yep.
We're not getting anything done. Our window is closed for codifying anything. The only thing that happened, I think, what are I think they just, I believe it was yesterday, that Congress, they passed none of their spending bills that can fund the government through December. I mean, most of us would like.
Why don't you balance a budget?
Well, I think most of us would like to be able to pass a spending bill to fund us through the end of the week, through groceries and through the utility bill, for crying out loud. How many more billions and billions and trillions is it going to take? And what are we getting for that? I want to say, I know you had a couple of stories too, so I'm gonna normally I'd move this story along, but RC, where do you want to go next? I've got tons of stories here. We can go any number of directions.
Can we do the Blake Neff thing?
Blake Neff, you want to do Blake Neff?
Yeah, let's do that real quick because this ties in. Yeah, this ties in part to what we've been talking about. So,
okay, Blake Neff. Let me put that on the screen.
Yeah.
Whoopsie daisies. Oh, come on, get it right, son. Get it right. There you go. Okay, so. This was something you reposted from X. Blake Neff here in the middle. Americans making the claim that Americans literally spend less of their income on food than any other country on the planet. Now, I can just stop right there, and people watching this now, either live or after the fact, ask yourself honestly, are you truly spending less on food than anywhere else? Are you spending less than you ever had? That's nonsense. Now, this was community noted. The linked article was using pre-2016 data showing the U.S. with the lowest food expenditure share. Recent UN data shows Singapore at 6.81, U.S. at 6.95. So obviously that claim in and of itself is no longer true. And of course, RC, note nothing like being the best house in a bad neighborhood. RC, what sticks out to you on this story?
So this coincided, Andrew, with a bunch of the Trump swarm on X. Basically, the question was posed, well, what would you like President Trump to do? I'll come back to that in a second. This is interesting to me. So the reason I use the analogy, the best house in a bad neighborhood, is you're acting like people not being able to afford groceries or having to decide between rent, groceries, and gas is somehow okay because we spend less of our money than somebody else. Listen, if you got the best house in a bad neighborhood, guess what? You're still in a bad neighborhood, right? That's silly. But these are the excuses and the justifications that get used. And the follow-on to that, like I said, was, well, what do you want President Trump to do? Here, I got a couple for you. One, please do what we actually sent you to do. Codify all the things into law that will protect us and protect economic growth into law, not executive order, not emergency order, none of that other BS. actually get these things codified into law so that they are set and they cannot be rolled back. Okay. The other thing that would be great is if you would just shut up. There are just times where you just need to shut up. And you guys can take this out of context however you want. Here's the truth. Being on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again in the Gulf with the Strait of Hormuz causes a yo-yo issue and such instability and angst from people. I was reading something the other day, Andrew, and there are so many people now who simply just don't want to leave their house. They're like, you know what? If I have to go out and run errands, it's like the Hunger Games out there. People are like out of their mind. They're on edge. Service is terrible. Hey, I tell you what, a fish rots from the head, as the great Ben Franklin would say, right? There's some truth to that. What is the tone that's being set? So what do I want President Trump to do? I want him to be presidential and I want him to lead. What I don't want him to do is be mad at the CEO of Chevron because he feels like the CEO of Chevron scuffed his Puma and in some way offended him because he didn't feel like President Trump did enough. I actually want you to do the thing, Mr. President, and your administration. We want you to do the thing. We want you to do the thing with onshoring of manufacturing. We want you to do the thing of making sure that illegals can't come in and do the things that they're doing. This is the basic things that we asked you for are the things that we want. And you know what? A little bit of economic freedom and growth would also be awesome. The other excuse that's being given is, well, this is what happens. This has been baked in from Joe Biden. Listen, you could have got away with that maybe last year, but the tide has turned. Now, this is President Trump's economy, whether he wants it or not, whatever he inherited, because it was very quick to switch. And I'm not defending Joe Biden here, but it was very quick to switch over and say, oh, no. This is Biden's economy. He did it. This is on him. Well, I'm going to say the same thing. You've had 2 years to get these pieces into place and to codify things into law, which if you would have done that first, the rest of these things would have worked as intended, and we probably wouldn't be in this quagmire that we're in the Middle East, which is dragging everything. So, Mr. President, to the administration, we would love for you to actually be presidential, be an adult, and do your job. People are craving some level of stability, and the only place they believe they can look to for it is a chaos monkey. Please stop doing that. It's not cool to be the best house in a bad neighborhood.
But RC, this is the best play that the GOP can make in the midterm season. They have to convince you that the higher prices and the chaos and all of this is the best possible outcome of all possible worlds. Because if they don't, they have to then admit a few mistakes, and President Trump will never do that. Never do that. And they also have to admit that they did not do what we sent them to office to do, that they didn't codify things into law, as we have talked about for years. You and I, especially on Culture Crossroads going back. And we said before the 24 election, we're going to have 15 to 18 months to get stuff into law. And we did not do that, any of it. And the thing is, some of the executive orders were good. Like, that's the thing. Like, everything Trump has done has not been bad.
Right.
But the seemingly unilateral things that he just does, executive order style, or just flat out, here's what's going to happen, or running off into war, or tariffs, or all this kind of stuff, those things they clearly are having negative effects. The GOP knows it, Trump knows it, so they're trying to tell us that either A, be patriotic and pay more, or B, get used to it because it's short-term pain for long-term gain, and trust the plan and all this stuff. Or C, on again, off again, on again, off again, on again, off again. And we don't want that. We don't want any of the nonsense. Now you've got almost 3/4 of America soured on the handling of Iran. We now have an electorate that says the Democrats would do better on the economy, even though they would continue to blow out spending too. And by the way, our U.S. debt, the national debt, just hit 40 trillion. And estimates are between 13 and 16 trillion of that is from President Trump alone. His first 4 years and these next two, so 6 years, which by the way is more than the 4 that Biden was in office. So President Trump's somewhere 12 to 16 trillion of the 40 trillion is the most amount of debt any single president would have ever acquired on their own over this time. So we are blowing out the spending. We own the economy, we being the GOP, and we can't keep you can't keep blaming Biden on this, and especially when Biden actually just continued what we started in year 4 of Trump 1.0. And again, I give a lot of mulligans for year 4, especially the first few months. But once the truth came out, I would even give a mulligan for the first round of stimulus checks, which even Thomas Massey was like, "Don't do that." But I'll go all the way back to that, which I feel like is a whole lot of grace to say, you know what, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know where we are on the bell curve, all these other things, right? But once the truth came out and once we saw the grift and once we saw the usurpation of our rights, wasn't it ironic? You have Dr. Fauci pleading the fifth, pleading his constitutional rights when he violated all of ours, you know? Anyway, I just sidebar there. But
Andrew,
but we're going into the midterms. How are you going to walk any of this back? You have to try to convince people that this is fine, this is good, this is what needs to be. That's not going to play.
Andrew, so you're right. And I want to share something with the audience here, and because I think this is really important to understand. There's another effect that's going on. I want to go back for a minute to what I said about people not even wanting to leave their house or interact with society because people are so on edge, or they're so incompetent, or the service is so bad, it's just painful to go out. There is something happening to us spiritually and psychologically through this process. When the tone and temperature of society is, well, I'm going to get mine, you better get yours. Don't think that doesn't come without consequences, because eventually people will take that to heart. And Andrew, when people start saying, doing, and acting like that, you're headed over the cliff. Because when we go, hey, I'm going to get mine, you better get yours, we are willing to do things that we wouldn't normally do. We're willing to make compromises that we wouldn't normally make, all for the sake of, 1, survival, but also 2, well, look, if the boss is doing it, it's got to be okay. And that's a really dangerous place to be in that I don't think a lot of people quite understand yet. They're feeling it. And I think part of what we do, Andrew, is to kind of give context to it. It's important to remember that here as you go along. Don't go down that rabbit hole. Just don't go down that rabbit hole, please.
And I think with the context that we're trying to provide is also the warning, not just to knock on Trump for things we disagree with or what have you. We do want to hold our own side accountable. It's our side. That's where we're going to have the most sway, at least in theory. But the precedences that we're establishing, the behavior that we're saying is okay from our government, these really are the red flags that we're saying, hey, no, this shouldn't be okay. Because
Right.
At some point, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat or whomever, we're going to concentrate enough power into that executive branch, and they're just going to say, you know what? I'm done with elections. You know what? I'm done asking for votes through Congress. I'm done. This is just what we're going to do. We now have this power now. It's become okay. And don't think we don't do that, because, and I want to point you back to the fact that we have not declared war since World War II in Congress. We've had joint resolutions, but we've not declared war. So you're going on 80 years now of wars that we've just gone into, that if we're going strictly constitutionally, unconstitutionally, all of them, every single one. Have you heard any Republican or Democrat bring that up at all ever?
Silly Constitution.
Have you heard the Supreme Court weigh in on that at all ever?
Silly Constitution.
Right? So again, we established the precedent, then let's take a couple of generations to get used to it, and then that's how it's going to be. And now we're openly calling this a war. And Trump did not call this a war originally because he couldn't. Because if he did, he would need congressional approval. But now we're past that. We just call it a war now because that's what it is. And we're not going to seek congressional declaration. We're not going to make our case for it because now we're stuck in it. And the problem is now too many political lives are at stake. So we just need to play ball and see if we can last to another inning. It's despicable. But also, this is what we try to warn about. The surveillance state, biomedical, big pharma tyranny, big tech tyranny, all these things that unfortunately the Trump administration is ushering in. And that's we have to be honest, and is laying the groundwork for. And if they're not ushering in, they're not rooting it out. Like, remember when they're going to repeal Obamacare? How well has that worked? Now they want to rebrand it, and the Republicans want to own it. Well,
hey, it's happening right now. It's fine. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's fine. It's wonderful. So, we're saying don't let these precedences take root, because you won't get rid of them, and then eventually the Constitution won't matter. And that's, I think, part of the end game for some opportunists in not necessarily our administration, but in our government, in the halls of power, that really don't care Republican or Democrat. They'll be whatever they are to get that power. And if you don't think that secret shadow stuff isn't happening, I think we've got time for one more of these stories.
Yeah, let's hit it.
I'll put this one up. This is a clip from this clip from Newsmax. I can't read the dude's name. Anyway, but this is a report that FBI Director Kash Patel released documents that confirm that the FBI manipulated January 6th, and that they were looking at it from as much as 5 months earlier, and that the DNC was planning on, if Trump had won in 2020, was planning on running some kind of riot or demonstration to delay the certification of the vote. Check this out.
From my perspective, sir, the FBI was not only involved in the actions on January 6th from within. They had, I suspect, over 200 agents embedded within the crowd, including agents, or as they would call, human assets, inside the Capitol, dressed as Trump supporters, before the doors were opened. Beyond that, the FBI had embedded themselves and infiltrated online chat groups and websites and social media accounts across the country with any group that was discussing objections to COVID oppression. And the FBI, effectively infiltrated those groups. And when you track the text threads and the communications within those groups and find the origins of suggestions of potential violence or an active occupation of the Capitol on January 6th, you'll find that those messages were led by members of the groups that ended up to be the FBI agents that had infiltrated the group. So the FBI's involvement was deep, not just on J6, but on the days and weeks and months prior.
And of course, the video that's just recently been released also showing the Capitol Police welcoming in people into the Capitol, not trying to keep them out as we were led to believe initially, undermining this whole insurrection narrative.
So there you have it. We are seeing now that once again, I don't know, what's the score now? Conspiracy theorists 24, narrative 0.
Wow.
I mean, we long suspected that this was an FBI plan, that it was an opportunity for a photo op, and they got what they want. But then here's another weird thing too. This negatively affected Trump. I mean, part of the reason he was prosecuted, during his reelection campaign, which I think he ended up using that for his campaign, was partly on January 6th. How many people went to jail and were held there for years? Some until Trump pardoned them, and they were held with no charges. They were looking around to find charges, innocent till proven guilty. It used to be, we have a crime, we need to find the suspect, we need to find the perpetrator. Now we need to find a person, or we have a person, we need to find the crime. And we're slowly getting into that across the country anyway. That's what the surveillance state is for. You know, we just want to watch you all the time and find some crime that we can get you with. You would wonder why President Trump wouldn't be more dogged about going after these things. You know, but then again, we know that their reports have noted there was an agreement that, hey, I won't go after your guys, you don't go after my guys. So we'll acknowledge, you know, quote the Biden auto pen pardon for Fauci, and you acknowledge the pardons that I made, and we'll just, you know, we'll all get away with everything. But this, I mean, we you know that the CIA has gone rogue. You know, Kennedy, you know, but even far back as President John F. Kennedy and presidents prior to him, Eisenhower as well, said the CIA had gone rogue. And so our agencies have operations that are being used against us and we the people to affect outcomes such as elections, to affect perceptions of outcomes such as elections. That's what we're looking at here.
Andrew, it pains me to hear some of this stuff. Again, conspiracy theorist 240,104, narrative 0. I was just thinking, I just got a text from him, Chris Worrell, J6er, who got pardoned, he still can't find a job down in Naples. We did a whole in-depth interview with him in a connection with our Byron Donalds piece. Byron was his congressional rep and didn't do anything for him. What Chris described to us in this instance, it's like there were so many people that were persecuted and prosecuted for no good reason. And what's their recourse been? Little to nothing, right? Because there's a deal that says, hey, I will go after your guys if you don't go after my guys. It just seems like we are moving towards this fascist totalitarian apparatus. We were already an oligarchy, and now it seems like we're just making the complete move. We're also crony capitalism, right? We're at that level, but it feels like we're just making that full jump into totalitarianism and the surveillance state. And it pains me because we've talked about this so much, and it seems like there's a level of apathy, just generally speaking, on this whole thing. It becomes frustrating, Andrew. And then I think at a very basic level, we want some accountability. Right? At a basic level, if somebody committed a crime against another person and they are deserving of prosecution and prison, can we actually see that happen just once? Can we just get one?
Isn't that what like people like Fauci represent? It's not that,
yes.
Like, if Fauci went to prison, it wouldn't change our lives. It wouldn't bring the price of groceries down. But it would represent, we're not afraid to hold people in power accountable. And but we're not going to do that. We're not. We're not. No, I'm going to save that because that's about to get into another story, and we're pretty much out of time. But I'll bring that up because it's something else. Again, it's just this crony. It's not even crony anymore. It's just flat out corruption. Let's call it what it is. It's both parties. It's DC. And they may be too far gone. I will say this: one way that we can push back again is at our local level. The more we can, if we want to, if you want to pay higher prices and have them matter, if you want, let me rephrase that. If you're paying higher prices for food, but you want that higher price to actually make a difference, then buy local. Those are higher prices. The quality is much higher. You don't have to worry about Taylor Farms spraying turds all over your lettuce because it's your neighbor that's growing it. Find the farmers markets, find the meat processor in your area, buy meat locally, do as much as you can in your community. Stop playing their game. If we don't play their game, they won't have the power over us. We have to show them that we don't need them. Their biggest source of power over us is that we need them to do stuff. I saw, and I'm going over time, but I'll mention this. There's a poll out with most parents now saying that they approve of cell phone bans, all-day cell phone bans for their kids in school. parents, you don't need the school to ban cell phones from your kids. You don't. You can take the phone. You can keep it all day and give it back. This is our problem. We don't need them to do that. We can do it. It's very simple. Give me your phone. Problem solved. I'm a parent, so it works. But we now are conditioned and used to relying on government for all these services, relying on this thing and that thing, and we just have to stop playing their game. And we can do that to some degree. So again, I would say if you can, buy local, do as much as you can local. Make sure you have a good sheriff. If you've got a sheriff up for election, know who they are.
Yep.
And vote for the right ones that are going to protect your rights and protect and defend the Constitution and your rights within the Constitution. Anyway, I'll shut up. RC, I give you the last word, and also again let everybody know where we are all over this internet space.
Andrew, we do this every day because we have to continue to fight the good fight. So you can find everything Culture Crossroads. You can see it scrolling along the bottom of the screen there. YouTube channel, Culture Crossroads 316. Watchman Action, all things Watchman Action. Start at watchmanaction.org. All of our social medias are Watchman Action. You can also watch us on Bet Cable. In the Dakotas, that's channel 40 on the Bet Cable and Epic Cable systems. You can also see the streaming at watchmanaction.org/network. And on all of our social medias as well. Watchman Action 24/7, plenty of episodes of Culture Crossroads, the Spin Cycle, the Watchman Brief, our other special reports. All that stuff lives there. And wherever you go, please like, share, and subscribe accordingly.
And with that, for RC Williams, I'm Andrew Southwick. This has been the Spin Cycle. Tomorrow's episode, actually, I think we'll be able to do it about the same time, about lunchtime, 12:45-ish, 1 o'clock. We'll be around here midday. Later in the week, it's going to be some later episodes. Again, my fault for some traveling I need to do, but we will be with you each and every day. So thank you for being with us today. We'll see you next time.